Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Shakespeare and Company. Aja Monet's new collection, My Mother Was a Freedom Fighter, is an anthology of personal histories, a poetic manifesto, a lyrical call to arms, a radical balm for the soul. Hers is poetry that resounds with timeless wisdom while remaining resolutely rooted in the contemporary. Whether she's riffing off current events and political movements in poems like #SayHerName, or composing odes to the mothers, daughters and sisters that shaped her, freedom fighters all. Aja Monet is a Caribbean-American poet, performer and educator from Brooklyn. She's been awarded the Andrea Klein Willison Prize for Poetry and the New Eurekan Poets Cafe Grand Slam title, as well as the New York City's YWCA's One to Watch Award. In addition to My Mother Was a Freedom Fighter, she's the author of The Black Unicorn Sings and the co-editor with Saul Williams of Chorus, a literary mixtape. She lives in Little Haiti, Miami, where she's co-founder of Smoke Signal Studio and dedicates her time merging arts and culture in community organising with the Dream Defenders and the Community Justice Project. Publishers Weekly called My Mother Was a Freedom Fighter stunning and evocative, and Frontier Poetry said that with this collection, Aja Monet has definitively arrived, and the literary world is about to take notice. While the great Harry Belafonte declared, Aja Monet is the true definition of an artist. We're going to hear Aja read, and believe me, you're in for a treat, after which you'll get a chance to ask her questions about her work, both as a poet and as an activist. So please put your hands together and give it up for Aja Monet.
Hello. Hi, everyone. That was a really great intro. I don't think I've had an intro like that ever. So thank you very much. Thank you to Shakespeare for having me. I'm really excited to be here. I spent some time living in Paris, so to be in Paris, revisiting and sharing poems with you all is lovely. How many of you speak English fluently? Okay, how many of you speak another language as your first language more fluently? Okay, great. So I'm going to say to you all, thank you especially for coming. I'm very grateful that you took the time to come to listen to a language that is not your first fluent language. So I want to let you know I'm grateful. I'm going to try to be as clear and I'll try to be as slow as possible so you can understand things. And if there's any questions, please feel free to ask at any point. And yes, thank you all for coming to listen, but particularly those who do not speak English fluently. Like, I'm very grateful. My heart has a special place for you because I'm hoping to get my multilingual skills going at some point. And maybe one day this book will be translated. So here we go. The book is called My Mother Was a Freedom Fighter. Some of the poems I worked on while living here in Paris. I lived in Paris from 2011, 2012, almost to 2013. And I've read in the Shakespeare bookstore before, so for me this feels like a little bit of a home. And so I just want to stress that it's important that you all are here and continue to support something like this continuing to be able to exist. So thank you. And I'll go through the poems. Essentially, the book is in 3 sections. The first section is Inner City Chants. And come in. We got to make sure you... No, there's a seat for you. There's a seat for you. Come in. This is Lisiane. This is one of the homies of the homies, my friends, sisters. You can come over here. I'm sure there's some space or something. Okay. Anyway, ça va? Toi? Okay. Okay, yeah. Anyway, so the first section is called Inner City Chants, and then the second section is called Witnessing, and the third section is called Undressing a Wound. And the reason why it was the best way I could order the book, because the poems come from all different times and periods, but the first section is a play on words. It's inner city chants, as in growing up in the inner city in New York and being a kid and what being in the inner city raised me to think and feel and be and all that stuff. And then the second section, and then it's also like inner city, inner world, interior world. Then there's the second section, which is witnessing, and that's more about the things I start to see in the world and the things that start to politicize me about the world. and feeling outraged and wanting to do something or write a poem and change in some way through the writing of the poem. Then the third section is undressing a wound is more about relationship, intimate, interpersonal wounds and healing of those wounds. And so that's the arc of how the book has been ordered. So I'll begin with the author's note and just start reading poems. My mother was a freedom fighter, and so were her mother and her mother's mother. I witnessed their movements in this world, and it informs my own. Their labor to love and live freely, their joy and their pain, their magic and madness, our cycles. I inherited their strength to survive in my struggle to be tender. I've learned all violence is a violence toward women. There are wars waged on our bodies, but no body is here except through the portal of a womb that carried the body. To hurt one is to hurt each person who labored to create us. The womb is a specific site of violence, and yet it is not solely defined by the brutality it endures, but also the creativity it nurtures. The yoni. How many of you know what the yoni is? Heard about the yoni? Who wants to share what the yoni is?
It's a vagina.
Yeah, good job. More specifically, it's the space of creation of life, right? And the thing I love about it, and the reason why I try to conjure up the usage of that word and learn more words for this specific site, is because the vagina is just like it doesn't encapsulate the magic and mysticism of this space. Like the word just feels, ugh. You know, like saying vagina, it just doesn't do what it does. You know what I mean? And then there's like pussy, which is like it just feels like a gross, creepy dude whispering in your ear or like trying to lick the side of your ear. It's just like, ugh, you know, like nothing about it feels empowering or like, yeah, this is creation of life. So the yoni for me is a reaffirming of that. And so in that, I'm trying to get people to just either use that word or use other words to try to encapsulate the beautifulness of it. Also, the yoni is a word that talks about is not gendered, so it's both encapsulates both masculine and feminine energy, which is something else that I think is really interesting to me. I talk about the book is more about mothering sisters and daughters, which is less about gender but relation to one another. So it's about what it means to be a mother, what it means to be a daughter, what it means to be a sister, and however you define that, I think that is how we create life. So the yoni is not a battlefield of knowledge and theory, but a source of mysticism. Women of the diaspora, whom I love, who do not rely on physical strength alone, but spiritual and emotional strength as well, they taught me that these poems are a way one posits the importance of feeling deeply in order for substantial social change to take place. This is a way of exploring the unknown. Actions without a confrontation of repressed feelings become movements without meaning. Gestures in good faith do not end oppression. It is risk and ruthless radical love that will see us through. There are many contradictions in the pursuit of liberation. I live in the contradiction. I live in the mystical nuance. I use poems to access some strange sort of freedom, and yet still I am bound to the circumstances that brought them to be written. Wolf spirit and silk skin, I shine. I am haunted and hunted. I imagine, forgive, and I am inspired. Fierce and full of fury, I am drama, giddy with gossip. Beyond human, I am at baptisms and funerals, churches and courtrooms, gardens and beaches. I am the prostitute and the saint. Sweat, sore nipples, and a bloody inner thigh. I predate gender. I love every face wet and blinking out of a cosmos. I am where people crawl in to breathe. I am born again each month and crying because I know the cleansing power of tears and hiccups. I am best in the arms of a lover who won't kill me. I dream of a world where no mother regrets, no mother resents, no mother buries her child. As I mature and become more fully the person I wish to be, my writing deepens, and I learn to face these poems and let them go. I've held on to some of them for far too long. They were written, selected, and ordered by my intuition, honoring what words could never know. I dedicate this book of poems to the children and the women like myself who struggled to reason bringing them into this world. Perhaps they'd say too, my mother was a freedom fighter. I dedicate this to a life of tenderness. This poem is called Language Frontiers. The cover of the book is by a photograph by Carrie Mae Weems. How many of you know who Carrie Mae Weems is? She's an incredible black female. Yeah, all the black men was like, I love it. Well, all of you other folks, learn about someone else, be exposed, be cultured. Carrie Mae Weems, she's an incredible photographer and visual artist and mixed media. She does mixed media as well. She has a portraiture. She's most known for her portraits, and usually they're self-portraits, and she's always kind of playing with how the camera looks at her and doesn't, and not just facing the camera but turning away, and being in colonial institutions and the commentary of a black woman's body turning away from the camera. Is all these layers of things in her work. And so I've worked with her, and in the process of writing this book, or working on putting the poems together for this book, I was working with her, and I asked her if she would do the honor and really grace me with a photo. And she said, sure, go look at my website, see what you like, what photos you want to pick, go ahead, do your thing. And so I spent some time looking, and this particular photo is called In the Mountains of Santiago de Cuba, and it's from an exhibition series called Dreaming in Cuba. And the reason why I mention that is because most people don't know when they see the cover why I chose it, but the reason why I chose it was because for me, I went back home to Cuba, quote unquote, my mother's side of the family is from there, and discovered a lot about my family history and story and struggle. And so this poem I'm going to read is from when I went back for a grassroots poetry festival. And while there was a conversation about spoken word versus literary poetry, which is like one of the most conversations. And in that conversation, they were talking about how they never knew anything else but the art of reciting words and language. And if you meet any Cuban person, you know that they all talk like this. Very similar to French, I guess. But they're just, a lot of gesturing, and their mouth moves really quickly and loudly. And so maybe that's kind of where I get a lot of things from. But in any event, we talked about ancestral knowledge and like the things that pass on, and why it's so important that the voice is a part of poetry. And so this is called Language Frontiers. Of timbers, tones, and convictions, nuance of noise, every sound has a song, a means of travel. The great listening begins a poetic life, an art of attending self. A word has no destination. Panting in what the eyes swallow, the ears hold thunder, the mouth is blown away. What is said when we speak? In the gut, mapping breaths, clairvoyant as a cry. A metaphor is embodied practice. We lose our meaning in its search. Saying and seeing, seduced by memory, surrender, stretch a voice into strength, sparring in the pulse of another, of what aches, what heals, what longs to be understood. All that is lost in translation. What is surrealism but ancestral memory, recurring images, chants, and feelings untouched? Our ancestors look at us from the borders of a lettered city. Across consonances, we speak. This next poem is called What My Grandmother Meant to Say Was. When I went there, I found out a lot of crazy things, one of which was that my grandmother left kids behind and never told us about it. So I had just talked to her right before I left to Cuba, and then it's a long story. It'll be a memoir one day. But I recognize how much compassion we have for men when they leave their children. that there's a system built on understanding Rolling Stones and the hardworking father or the complicated, tortured father who can't do, we just are supposed to have compassion and understand. And that when a mother leaves her children, it's a particular kind of venomous violence that we shun. It's like, how dare you? It's probably one of the things that is seen as the worst thing a mother can do, right? And so in that, I thought it would be interesting, especially for my family, to try to learn what it would be like to have compassion for my grandmother. So this is called What My Grandmother Meant to Say Was. What my grandmother meant to say was, I glow. I am luminous. I flare in the sky, a light gleaming in the Sierra Maestra at night. I am the mountains. I sway the sun to rise. Yearning, I dance. I taste of salt. My fingers cannot sit still. I smuggled tears from smile to smile. I ran. When I was too tired to run, I swam. Love reached beyond borders. I swam. I rose. I flew. I dreamed. I fell in love with little to no belonging. I belonged to nowhere and no one. I was in love with everywhere and everyone. I was hungry, cold. I hated hunger and cold. I hated everywhere with no food. I hated everyone with everything. It was different then. I was stupid. I was a woman. I was waiting to become more than what happened, more than a bird fleeing my country to bathe in being afar, more than a landscape or an image to cast a shadow on, a clip in a newspaper, more than a seductress or a magician of visions to foretell. My children riding on the wings of my sacrifice, I left them. I turned back many times. I almost became the devil they wanted, but I left a devil nonetheless. I was a woman ahead of her time. I shimmer in scars mapped by our bloodlines of living. I imagined more than broken families. I come from the laughter of aspiring lovers, the lure of trembling in another's arms. What about what I wanted? Who listens for what goes untold? I could not protect my children from everywhere. I made offerings to the spirits who attend. I am their mother. I am not God. I was a candela. I was a witch they could not burn. La fuega. I was their mother. I was not God. I made choices. I made peace. I was a woman ahead of her time. I am the road you took here. I am la camina. La camina. I was the way. How many of you ever been to New York? Oh my God. This is like, okay, there we go. Okay, cool. I know people don't want to travel to America right now because we got an orange president, but it's a very unfortunate, sad reality. Let Simona in. Simona, come on. This is what happened when you come late. No, I'm just CP time. I understand. I already knew it was going to happen. I was like, I told them, most of my friends. We'll see what time they show up. Okay. But I love it because, we don't believe in time. We function on other wavelengths. But I know we got to work with time in this world we live in. Anyway. So here we go. This next poem is called for the mothers who did. How many of you have mothers that be like, I did the best I could? Yeah, right? I did the best I could. Like, that's probably the most consistent. Even he's like, yeah. Looked like that was like a specific chord that was struck. Like, oh, she just told me that right before I came here. So essentially, like, I love my mother. We don't have the most healthy relationship, and part of me writing poetry has been able to try to process that. We don't always speak, and when you meet her, that's the one thing she'll say, before anything. She'll be like, I did the best I could. You'd be like, hi, nice to meet you. I did the best I could. You're like, okay, I would hope so. So but anyway, so I was like, I have to write something for the mothers who did the best they could. She does not know. Sorry. She does not know we are sisters. Even it be years we don't speak, on my spirit sacred as a smile that survives a good cry. I hold her close just before the sun rests on a building across the water, spills a shoulder on the street. And we lean on love for the first time in a long while, since 2 open palms ago, praying or holding a framed memory. I am somebody's daughter again. I speak like I belong in her echo. I watch chaos control a heart, a wild repression from a distance, loving everybody from a distance. Ease me from spending too much time with my likeness from a distance. The crossfire carnival of childhood, reappearing images, a pinch in every dream, silent as a paper cut from a distance. A single mother alone, making do with what may, what madness comes of survival of the fittest. If spirits prove we reach beyond, can we love at a distance? I am rueful and wicked to wait so long before touching my mother, this soft like I lay our avenue down for her feet, and we walk toward the bus, a skyline humming in our hug, embracing the drops between us. I have kept each tear, never fully fallen, choosing this dimpled woman as a portal. What I meant was, I am vulnerable. I am a daughter. If I do not hear my mother's laughter, it could go years. Every room is a prison. Every love is a lie. Every friend is a foe. I cannot tell the difference between her wailing and mine. My mother does not know. We are sisters. I grew up with a single mother, so one of the things I talk about often is the ways in which, as daughters, you know, the book is dedicated, it's for the daughters, and as daughters we carry, our mothers don't always realize how much of their lives and their stories we always will carry, whether they know it or not. It's a part of our narrative, particularly in a more intense, intimate way than just carrying your father's history or legacy, etc. I think there's something about that relationship between the mother and the daughter. This next poem is called Jungle Gym. For those of you who have been to Brooklyn, you might recognize some of the references. In East New York backyards, hanging clothes on the laundry line, jams spill out the vintage radio from the kitchen screen, swollen mosquito bites and scraped knees, dirty band-aids hang off scrawny elbows. We wash pit bulls with a water hose and shampoo soap suds flood the clefts in the cement, sun raw chasing the back of our shoulders. We tan in Newport, smoke sipping on sweating cups of Pepsi and freezer ice tray cubes. City kids claw toward the earth while adults build more buildings. We ran toward trees, climbed fences, a marathon to connect to the world, children with vivid visions, empowered by inner rhythm to know the difference between war and love, tolerance and respect. Loyalty was law, Manhattan was the government. I used to think all police officers were born in a jailhouse somewhere in Midtown and that the mayor fetched them on us come morning. We rose, sundered skin, cruising on handlebars, sporting fresh knee scabs, sidewalk arm with chalk illustrating inner city blood. Laughter lived through us. Foul-mouthed knuckleheads, we were careful. We were so careful, careful not to die too young. Gap-toothed smiles garden the graves of our greats. Metropolis moonlight mocks the Hudson River. Apartments turn their igneous light bulbs on. Dwellings blush, sapphire of incandescent stars flickering in buildings and bridges. Many love the mouth, murder secrets there. Words heard throughout a city, old gunmetal pigeons starving and flying over asphalt rivers. Who records the bird's eye? A testament of tenement rooftops overlooking the millions. So I heard that Paris is dealing with its own degree of gentrification. Such a nice word, gentrification. It makes it sound so sweet, doesn't it? So gentle. Except it's really very ugly and colonizing in nature. So I think I should read this poem that deals with that. I was in Brooklyn and I just started to see all these people moving. Actually, there was a lot of French people moving into Brooklyn. back there and I was just like, what the hell is all these people speaking French for? What is going on? It was really crazy. And I realized everybody's trying to get the hell out of this country and, you know, take advantage of that euro exchange. So in that, I just started to see, you know, just in general, when you're sitting in your community and you just see things changing, there's like that, you know, you have that little bit of rage that comes out. And I was like, ooh, I want to cast a spell of all spells to get all this out of here. And this is called an offering. Vermilion wax seeps soft down a braided back of wick. The mischievous flame swallows small devils rendered helpless. Shadows tremor the parquet, how we rid a room of virulence. Tug a cork from deep copper wine and pour toward the mestizo priest. Hospitality defies sin. A spineless bruised banana lay near the lantern's gutter. We, marooned in the projects, hid in the holy hood of our crown, douse our bodies in albahaca water blessed by Sanhog saints. Abre el camino. As hellish hipsters sip on Brooklyn brew, we stop and frisk spirits, haunt these streets, handcuffed with bicycles while they litter their laughs. Maraca our wrists at City Hall to thunder the gods from their tenement altars. Venture to gentrify our heaven and wage a war with a witch. Gonna move into the second section, I think. I'll read this one. I usually never know I'm gonna read it, just kind of go with the flow. So bear with me. I'm gonna read Inner Healing. Something about hospital doorways. Doctors come and go from a realm of questions. Bootleg medicine men, IV machines and stale sheets bleached of bodies, the halls reek of begging or pleading. These sterile buildings make me a horrible. I do not like hospitals, fake smiles and soulless food. Frightened by grief, confused for dying, what lingers in the pain of it all? Is this numb if you feel like you are always near death? I make peace with what is certain. Alejandro Jodorowsky once said, people should be healed in the open. Healing belongs to the people. So why here? We lowered many heads to many diagnoses. She whispered my name, her arm extending beside her bed. It's a recurring snow globe shake in my mind, awkwardly standing there, longing to touch her in a room that could soften her smile. I remember not caring about the revolution or government, education or poverty. None of it mattered if I didn't have a special sort of bond with the spirits that be in every room I entered, watching over us, all knowing and being. There were many gloomy days. Every time the curtains opened, she clung to us, desolate cliffs, bastards of broken vows and false hopes. When we weren't who she thought, she threatened us with dying. I stopped visiting the hospital. Everywhere I went, people were sick, dying in public. We prescribed the suffering. People we love die alone. People afraid to love die alone. We watch people die alone in secret, as if it weren't happening. We live to die in rooms with people afraid to visit them. How many of you heard of Christopher Dorner? The name sound familiar at all? Nope. Great. So you all learn about something today. Christopher Dorner was a man who, prior to the Black Lives Matter, it was actually right after I had left Paris. It was one of my first speaking poetry readings that I got invited to do backstage in the States, which is in Nebraska of all places. And I remember being in the hotel room, and there was on the video, on the TV screen, there was this news live coverage about this man who was killing all these police officers. He was just showing up to places and shooting up police officers in LA. Did that story sound familiar? Did you hear about this? There was this random, I mean, I know y'all hear a lot of crazy shit about American guns, so you probably have a lot of things to pull from. But this is one specific moment. It happened before a lot of the other moments that happened. And it was crazy because of course, what happens when that happens to black folks? Do you know what's the first thing that goes through a black person's mind? Is he black? I pray he's not black. Please don't let him be black, right? That's like the first thing. Like, let him be anything else. And guess what he was? He was black. But let me tell you something, though. This was long before the current Black Lives Matter movement. Not super long, but it was before the current political moment we're in. And this black man, who was a veteran and a police officer, was for the first time declaring how outraged he was by the injustices he had seen firsthand in the police department. And he believed that the only way to resolve it was to kill them. Now, this might sound crazy, but he released during the time in the news, because you know the news, the media be all types of bullshit. The news was saying there's this crazy man running around killing people. He killed families. He killed people. And I don't justify the death of anyone in any shape or form, but there was no context for why. And that's the biggest problem, because this is how you create you guys had an exhibition here called The Invention of the Savage, right? Remember this at Quai Branly? Did you guys ever see that? Anyway, it went through how you create the invention of the savage. This is how you create the invention of the terrorist, the evil person, the villain, the person you got to kill and enslave and keep under wraps and jail and persecute and oppressed and all that other shit. This is how you do that. You create narratives in the media and in your news and your film and all this stuff that makes people look like they are predispositioned to be violent and savages. So this is what was happening in the media. Little did you know, he wrote a manifesto. He released a manifesto, and in that manifesto, he details in very good description why he had been driven to the point of despair and utter just giving up, essentially. And part of it was he had notably warned people about the racism in the police department, and they kept moving him from department to department and telling him to shut up. His name would be under wraps, and people would say really messed up things about him in the department. He talks about all the accounts, different things he saw, police officers beating up black people, and him trying to speak out against it, and realizing that he was a veteran, he had fought for this country, and he had come back here, and he didn't become an officer to be able to do these things to people. That's not why he became an officer. And then he talked about his name, the importance of his name, that the reason why he was doing this and writing this manifesto is because he wanted to clear his name. He felt like the police department would muddy his name, and he wanted to let everyone know who he was, that they would remember his name and remember what he stood for and why he died and why he was killing people. This is a story you should just look up, because I think it was very foreshadowing of the current political moment we are in. The fact that this police officer, and matter of fact, a black police officer, was already making indictments of the police department and the state violence, state-sanctioned violence against citizens and civilians. And we didn't listen. We didn't listen, and we don't think about the hysteria or the things that we say, oh, that person's gone mad, they're crazy. We don't look at what caused the hysteria. We don't look at what caused the madness. We just say they're crazy, and that's it. So this is called The Whistleblower, and it's because I believe he was a whistleblower, and we didn't listen. And so there's a play on the breath, whistle, etc. It starts with a little quote by James Baldwin. If you don't know my name, you don't know your own. 80 miles east of Los Angeles, a veteran chars in the cellar of a cabin. Breathless, luminescent, blowing the blues away, fingers triggering the air, a trumpet of ash and smoke. His name was Christopher Dorner, like Nat Turner was a name, like Bass Reeves was a name. A name preserves the spirit. A name outlives the body, turns into dust, breath between the lips. A griot history will turn him into a boogeyman, the horrifying color of despair. wicked with revenge, marooned in a bush, the body bound by white hoods, bullets of uniformed men shooting in the dark, sparks of fire and flicker roasting the breeze. Criminals never survive to tell the story, to utter the violence of the silence held against them. No one read the manifesto, and if they did, killing is never justified unless the spectacle around it survives our illusion. Death is only justice. Death is only justice. Death is never justice. Is only justice at the hands of the powerful and mighty, broadcasted in newspapers and television programs. These days, black people don't hang from trees. We linger on eyeballs of news feeds. They gawk at the massacre for all the right reasons. We sanction the bloodshed while we were busy killing each other. A pine tree stood defiant in the woods, a branch split open, bark, wounded and weeping, a vow to never be human, to never be flesh again. He sits as the debris settles, watching us come and go, picking at the scab, leaves whispering of the wind, with stories that only a hiss can tell. How many of you have seen somebody do something messed up and they say, I'm just doing my job? Yeah, right? It's like, really? That is the most just inhumane response to fuckery in the world. Like, I'm just doing my job. You know, there used to be a time when you went to somebody and like, they did a little bit more than their job. They did something called being human. You know, they were just kind and thoughtful and maybe a little bit, you know, beyond what you thought human beings were supposed to be doing in this current moment, which is just like considering another human being. So this is short, but it's just what it is. I'm just doing my job. Is not an answer or solution or remedy, is not what you say, is not how you respond, is not professional or kind or noble, is not a prayer or lending a hand, is not a sermon, is not a law, is not an offering, is not altruistic or people-spirited, is not protecting, is not comforting, is not listening or seeing or doing, is not enough. Just doing my job is not a being. This next poem is called Dark Matter. Dark Matter is a poem that kind of touches on the irony of the fact that during the time of Black Lives Matter happening in America and across the globe, essentially, scientists and physicists were trying to understand what dark matter was. They had discovered the Higgs boson and all this stuff. And then I thought the irony, right? You trying to understand dark matter. There's dark matter all around you. I was like, ain't that some funny shit? White supremacy, really, you know? And so the quest and the pursuit of trying to understand, I think that that's their true, you know, inner turmoil, is that they can't understand magic, and magic ain't meant to be understood. So they just keep trying to understand shit, and it's just like some things you just got to be and do and live. Just stop trying to understand everything all the time. Anyway, dark matter. Don't let anything or anyone snatch you out of happiness, which in all honesty, as opposed to selling something, is gratitude. How many times a day do you say thank you instead of assault at a head? How ready the heart for values that cannot be measured by the dollar or advertisement, which is my master and yours too. In all honesty, had that been something of value, there are no gods in America, unless of course your God is green and greedy, complicit and complacent, compliant and easily compromised. It would ease so many in their conscience if I say money is not the enemy, yet who are we kidding? Don't we already know enemies aren't real except perceived threats? So you mean to tell me you worship your heart or your Jesus or your Allah or your Jehovah? Are you sure there isn't something else guiding you each day out the door toward a perceived purpose? And what would you be doing? What would you be doing had money no business? New York City tells me 1 hour of the average human being's life is worth $7.25. And what is $7.25 75 cents to $1. If $1 is only a piece of paper, which is only a representation of value, we don't actually have anything to show for, except what we purchase, which is only the value we give it, except what we give is measured by what we take and call valuable. And where is all the gold these banks claim to represent? I wish I could tell you about some kind of inner gold you possess, but I'm still digging for mine, as if I could own what's inside me, as if it's not part of something greater than matter or sight or this English language which limits the agreements we can make together about our existence here together. In 2012, scientists claim they found the God particle, this question, this troubling missing factor of our weight, our hold, our value. They claim, and yet we have no evidence except the collision of values. Most of what we know and how we see ourselves is determined by 5 Western countries, 5 of which determine value by how well they kill others. And we out here screaming Black Lives Matter, as in exists, or take up space, as in atoms, molecules, as in mass. Ain't there some funny irony there? I'm starting to believe that this is all we value, is each other's death more than life. And if life's so valuable, how come? How so? It's not lost on me that death is part of life. Some die so others live. But who is doing all the dying exactly at the expense of all this living? And are you really being? I know number 45 is not great at all. And Obama has somehow become the token person everybody's longing for again. But I remember when I was here living in Paris, everybody thought because Obama was in office that somehow America had solved the race issue. And we were somehow so evolved and beyond, and we won. We did something great. And I remember saying to people, no, like I would sit with French people like arguing, like, no, just because we have a black president doesn't mean that it's solved anything. And it was really hard for people to understand that. But here's a short poem. It is what it was when your president bails out the banks, not the students. It don't make no difference if he's black or blue. All you care about is how much money you got before you overdraft your account for reading books and writing essays, and all you got to show for it is garnished checks, cups of noodles, fancy friends, and terms your family don't understand. They just want to know why you got 2 degrees and no health care and no decent income. And I tell them I got all the ways of talking about the problem, but no way to make solutions. So, dear Mr. Crazy Foreign Policies, False Flags, War and Propaganda, Mr. GMOs, Chemtrails, Drones and Deportations, dear Mr. False Hopes and Bamboozled Dreams, Mr. Osama Bin Laden and Gaddafi Killer, Mr. No Power to Close Gitmo while chastising black folk to defend your white cousins, we know Trayvon could have been your son. Sad thing is, he was. He was you, too. I'm just going to do a few more. This poem is called My Mother Was a Freedom Fighter. It's the title poem of the book, and I got to read this at the March on Washington, D.C., the Women's March in January. Although there was a lot of people reading that day, so you probably missed me. But yeah, it was hard to feel like you were actually heard because there were so many voices. I think it's really great that we're in this moment of sharing voices and, trying to get everybody's story out there. But one of the things I hope that we do is we learn how to be more active listeners, and we teach and we raise up young people who know how to have critical thinking. Because what we keep seeing is share your story, tell your voice. And there's no wait, let's listen so we know what we're going to say when we share our stories. Let's think critically about how we share our stories. Let's be strategic about where and who we share our stories with. And these are things we got to teach people, because I remember working for one of these TV youth companies, and you weren't allowed to show... essentially, you weren't allowed to go from like a television show for kids to a commercial without that thing, like Nickelodeon, we'll be right back. You know that thing? A little clip that was like, we'll be right now back to the show. I used to write those things. I interned for Nickelodeon, used to write those things. But you know that it's a law in youth television that children need something to let them know, that you have to legally let children know you're leaving fictional world into reality. Because children can't distinguish between what is what. That's a law. How come we don't do that for internet, for social media? I mean, young people, there should be classes in school about how to deal with the internet. Because there's a psychosis going on. And there's like mental illness and mental health. And young people are like so engaged that they're not engaged. So, you know, I just say that to say we have to do better and we need to share our stories and all those things. But we also have to create active listeners. My mother was a freedom fighter. She testifies a night song on the woolly back of a mammoth. Shadow boxing rivulets, a mother's cowl falls to her feet. A fist in the pouch of a honey-hipped Negra hill towering over the country. The farmers of plantations made of motels and mansions, nurse of hospitals and camps, shamans and huts walking to work in dawn fog. With heretic hands, a chupacabra suffering in solos, or a black unicorn refugee panhandling at the border of an upside-down dimension. Beguiled by bars bearing the burden of crimes of love, cold sweat, gloom, despair, almonds, denied a passport to mercy, a citadel of judgment. She was born in the bulwark of bordellos and brothels. Poor women least love in pawn shops shaped as men, traversing the sins of them. Unyielding wind blows her back into dirt roads and waves dimly seen singed at the stakes or drowned at sea. She studies the way of water and gills, a mermaid. She is an archipelago of shanty towns. She is invention and necessity, found scraps, a bouquet of bloody music in her hands, cane of sugar, leaves of tobacco, a cluster of bananas, coffee beans, the husk of corn, a poppy seed, tea shrub, spikelet of wheat, rice flour, gold nuggets, diamonds and coltan. She is an incantation bellowing from the fields and mines. Look for her in the ruins, at the funeral procession, drunk off palm wine, screaming in a traffic of arms, lonely but not alone. On the shores of Goree, she pinched yam and okra seeds in her baby's hair, carrying the wrath of their stories for when the fowls come home to roost. Enduring tides of licks and whips, she wept by a mangrove and carved a spear from her lover's bones. Spitting on her thumb, she smeared shame from her children's cheeks, blessed in esteem, blighted dreams born of zealous sires, laying with her in a stretch of orchids, honeysuckles, daffodils, cotton blooming or splayed on a cot during a conjugal visit. Switchblade in her boot, straw hat sitting on her braids. She touches herself, moaning. Pleasure pours gently on her. She was captured in the middle of a gunfight in broad daylight, muzzled by averted ears, smarmy smiles, and what befell their humanity. If ever a drought, clouds gather on one accord and rally above her for seasons, further than the choice of children. She is beyond what names her courage. She arrived, quarreled by instinct, a petition for presence. It was a woman. It was a woman who nannied neglect in maroon parishes, hooting and hollering. She midwife revolutions in rainforests, Amazons, and cities, settlements of her sorrow beseeching, because the eye of the storm within her, they called her magic. Nearly more, she was a freedom fighter, and she taught all of us how to fight. I want to leave you with some love. So I'm going to go into the love section, or loving section, because there's some parts that are more loving than others. I never read this poem, but I was in Brussels and I went to a hammam, and it was amazing. How many of you have been to a hammam? How many women? Yeah, women. That shit is amazing. We need them in every corner of the earth. It should be a human right. Like, everyone needs to, like, you know, Yeah, the media is so horrible. You know, the more I learn about Islam and Muslim women, and the more I'm like, I want to be Muslim. Because it's such a beautiful culture, and practice and faith, and just the way in which there are things that we aren't taught as a part of the practice and the faith. And like, it was amazing. I've never been in a situation with so many women and I wasn't under the male gaze. And we were just naked. Like literally and figuratively, like we were naked. And we were just loving on one another. I've never seen anything more beautiful. Like, it is to this day one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in my life. And there was like this woman just like throwing other women on tablets and scrubbing her and, you know, lifting up arms and titties and legs. And it was just gorgeous. And you see like full figured, like the poem will go into it, but you know, you see all these full figured people, just different body shapes and different sizes and different kids and different, just like running around in wet feet. And it was beautiful. It's like, I don't have to hide, you know, I didn't have to do nothing weird. I didn't have to like contort myself. I could just be like, you know, and not worry about somebody thinking of me in this sexual fucked way. It was lovely. So go visit a hammam if you've never gotten a chance. Do that for yourself. And brothers, I don't know what it's like for y'all. I've never been on that side. And I don't think I want to go on that side. But, you know, good luck. We need more revolutionary male hammams. La Riyadh Hammam. Two women bathe one another. The eldest gestures her head back. A tin pail pours fresh water, squeezing a hand of hair. Rinsing soap suds, tiny bubbles dribble down her elbow. Another, all belly and bump, carries her naked son on her hip out the sauna, glowing hot steam. Children tapping toes in the splash. An elder kneads black soap, calves on wet stone, pampering. We swash cupfuls on heaving breasts, hair hushed between our legs. We are water beds, holy in a Maynard harem. What of a woman with grooves? What of washing a scarred lower back? Stretch marks, the graffiti thighs of a goddess. A more love poem. I'll end with this. All right, I'm going to do one shorter and the other one shorter. So here we go. I say I love you. How many of you moved somewhere for somebody? Ain't that some shit? It's beautiful. Like, do it, you know. But that's life. Life is all like risk. Anything worth anything is risk, you know? So I think that's what we need to learn. But this is called I Say I Love You. I say I love you. A life in boxes rolls down the East Coast like a Greyhound cup of dice. I bet on this each time. You picked me up one time from the airport with a whole chicken seasoned in the trunk. Blooming red flowers in the cup holder, a bottle of Malbec at my feet, a wine glass in the glove compartment, gifts gathered as if I were some Orisha crowning. You would not tell me where we were going. I did not close my eyes often. We crossed over a body of water, and you set your grin on me like that, an open book of hymnals. I felt it in my toes. I was a symphony summoned by that much. That's how much. A song I sing under my breath, a hand I hold, fearless and unspeakable. I would journey the ends for this, blindfolded, cross my heart. And I'll end with this poem. This will be my last one. It's called Selah. I met my partner in Palestine. And there's a poem in here about that. You guys could spend time with that. And it was really just lovely to be able to just, one, be in solidarity with folks, and recognize the state violence in Israel and how that plays out with the state violence in the States and the correlation, and just, it was the narrative has often been solidarity is about shared struggle, but for me, solidarity is about shared joy, a shared goal of freedom, and a shared will to fight, to carry that debt with someone, to carry that burden, that journey, that strength with someone else. And so what we learned is that Palestine is full of hard, terrifying, just evil stories of what has been done to the Palestinian people in the name of a horrible nation state, which is not free and is not a democracy and is not anything about integrity. But in spite of that, we found love there, and we found, I always say we went to Palestine. We went to the Holy Land, and the holiest thing we found wasn't in churches or mosques or temples. It was among the Palestinian people, eating food with them, breaking bread, being in conversation, laughing, dancing, drinking, hearing stories. I mean, that's where I saw the power of God. And so I want to say I met my partner there, and this is a poem I wrote inspired by our encounter and us meeting there. He's an organizer and part of an organization called the Dream Defenders. And this is where I'll end. Selah. 1. We were inevitable and since then inseparable. I fell for your eyes before I knew what your mouth could do. We wandered inside the looking. Silence dozed in a gaze that spans a lifetime, a landscape of gazing. We reached morning together. Desire outlived its moment, and we touched a realm without touch or time. A bead of your sweat is too the dew that drips on a foggy glass, the van on the road. I hurried to sit next to you. Your body is an earth, and my body too. If you love like that, to know what drives you mad, to reveal what in you aches, how you live in the heart, never mind judgment or what it tells. If you love like that, to honor what abhors us, to deserve beauty, we demand it, seek it in all unseen places, alive in what is unsaid. Beauty is the absence of distraction or insecurity or judgment. Beauty is resistance, and love is survival we need. 3. It is a chill night in Bethlehem. We linger in cold air, interlocked arms, catching each other from slipping on icy stones. We are so close for warmth. Nearsighted, I am singing with my shower voice. You are the reed bed I call out to all of my days. I sung for you, longing to risk anything worth everything. With you, I am innocent of knowing I want to feel myself love. 4. What a word. How do you define a word that is so often laughed out of a room? Without it, I've seen the strongest weep, bend, break. 5. The senses we shared, the many moments in between recollecting them, they happened to us as a biblical story might happen to God. It is poetry, but hardly speaks for what words could never say. We live every song sung about this. We offer the world a new creation myth, one of our doing. Selah. 6. Star Street was humming in fog, or our hearts breathing near each other was so loud the air became what we would not say, or God is what was between and within. Each laugh bloomed from you as if a body lifting the cold. I saw words stretch out of your throat. I wanted to brave your exhale shaking down the street. We laughed a holy laugh and filled an empty road with it. 7. And if we boil it down to the sheer coincidences of events that led to now, the strayed chances of our first encounter, a fight for better lives leads one to love, or a boy dies and a girl too, daring or defiant, another dies and another, until it's all we know, another and another. Every damn day is a coffin. Were we numb, we would not have journeyed toward justice, or what was it? Every step forward is a glance backward. Is this freedom, fighting for it? Each country we meet is a country of fighting. 8. Sometimes I fear when you walk out that door, you won't come back. I worry we won't see a wedding day, or watch our children choose names to live up to, or help our son lock his hair like his daddy does, or how our daughter tells long-winded stories to be heard by you just like her mama does. I try not to worry. I pray. I love hard. I say, let's live a little. Come home. I'll wash the dishes. I'll cook. I'll clean. I'll leave love notes on the mirror every day for you. I won't ask for no future if that's asking too much. Am I asking too much? Don't die. I'm here fighting too every day. 9. How many cuddles have we configured between these two bodies of ours? We twist ourselves and uncover heavenly nooks to nap within, a ceremony of our meditated nows. I love your body. I love my body when it is with your body, entangled, a vine of snug limbs. 10. I just want to smoke a spliff in the open air with you, listen to Frank Ocean, write poems, jump into waves, and recite Psalms.
Aja Monet, everybody. Thank you so much. We're not going to have time for a Q&A. We've used up our full hour, but I can't think of a better way to have spent the hour, except perhaps in that radical hammam you just invented. Luckily, however, the evening isn't over. Aja will be around signing books, of which we have plenty and plenty at the till. Of My Mother Was a Freedom Fighter, but also The Black Unicorn Sings, and also, of course, the collection that Aja edited with Saul Williams. So do pick them up. Otherwise, stick around, have a glass of wine, enjoy the evening, continue the conversation, and give it up one more time for Aja Monet.